I know the owner, David Jones, good guy. So
Oh, cool. Yeah.
did so you guys everything's copacetic with him?
Yeah, no, it was a guy named Joe that was
Oh,
booking. It
okay.
wasn't, yeah. So yeah, I mean he understood, and it was honestly it was Doug that was called on our behalf and said, look, these guys aren't going to be able to make this work, and they're, you know, would rather than have them try to scrape it together and make it work, and then maybe a week before the show go, sorry, we're not going to be able to make it, and then have him pissed off at us. We just decided, no, let's keep that let's keep that relationship clean, and just well in advance when we thought it might not be able to happen, just go ahead and cancel that.
Yeah.
So, but some other bands jumped on. We saw are still playing that show, and you know, wish them the best. You know, I opened for Raven a few years ago with Silent Storm. Great, still a great band.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, Portland's music scene is not what it was pre-COVID. You know, with all
Sure.
the things that happened in the last couple of years, a lot of bands are opting to pass on by, you know, Seattle
Mhm.
and straight down to California. Um, but there's a good scene here. There's good coverage, you know. So when you guys can play here, you know, you'll get some good coverage here.
Definitely.
Yeah, we want to get back there as soon as possible, for sure.
So what's the Medford music scene like?
The Medford music scene.
Yeah.
Those
Can
are
you hear me
words that
okay?
don't. Yeah. Oh no, I was gonna joke and say that those words shouldn't be put together. That's not.
Oxymoron, yeah. No.
Yeah, Medford and music scene don't really. It's not true.
No.
Just like how everywhere there's kind of a few bands, that kind of break out of a certain scene, and then there's lots of local bands that kind of sort of, you know, sound like those bands.
Yeah.
So when Everclear broke in Portland, suddenly you could go to EJ's or the Satyricon or whatever, Pine Street, and you could see 5 local bands on a Tuesday that were all clearly trying to be Everclear. I'm sure, you know, Nirvana thing, right? In
Yep.
Seattle. When Motley Crue came out, suddenly every band on the strip was going to think that, you know, they thought they were going to be the next Motley Crue. Pantera came out of Texas, and suddenly there's a million other Texan bands that are doing that thing. And that sort of happens. So out of Medford, there's kind of only a few smaller names, I mean, that people would know. Helmet, Page Hamilton's from here. So when they broke out, when Unsung, I'm sorry, what's the album called, Tim?
Meantime.
When Meantime came out, suddenly there was a bunch of bands from the Medford, Ashland, Grants Pass area that were kind of, you know, piggybacking off that a little bit. Neurosis, Scott Kelly from Neurosis lives here. There's a lot of bands that came up over the years that you can tell huge influence of Neurosis, like that kind of sludge, doom, stoner, you know, way heavy. They have orange amps, and they're super loud, and it's monster vocals, and it's more about the show and the vibe. And so there's these little clicks. And then a couple of the guys from the band Sleeping with Sirens are from here. So of course they, you know, when they break out, now there's all of these kind of screamo bands coming out, and they look like those, you know, they have got the same haircuts, and they're wearing the same kind of clothes, and they're trying to be the next Sleeping with Sirens or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's things like that. That's what I would get a lot regionally. I had an all ages music venue for a long time, and booked bands coming through, and I could almost always find a band of one of those 3 types, you know, to play. If a Sleeping with Sirens type band's coming through, yeah, I know the right band to open. Oh, a band like Neurosis is coming through, I know the right band to open. But as far as like what we do, you know, we're pretty much the only thing always. I mean, we've always been the only band from our area that was anything like us. We came in right on the heels of another band that was breaking up at the time that kind of had a little bit of our vibe, a little bit of a Flotsam and Jetsam kind of a thing going on. Going to give a shout out. It was a band called Synesthesia, and they were doing a lot of the same kind of a thing as us, but I don't think there was any overlap. Like, they played their last show right before we played our first show.
Mhm.
And I think one of the guys from Synesthesia even maybe ran sound for us a couple times.
Yeah.
So no bad blood.
It was wide open, like every time, we come out, it's like same with Silent Storm. When we were doing the Silent Storm thing, we were the only band around here that had any kind of old school 80s traditional melodic vocals, but with Silent Storm had a bit more of a European vibe. I think that at least that's what the reviews say. Oh, Diamond Head, Angel Witch, a lot of comparisons like that. Okay. So yeah, I know that Portland's always had a strong metal scene. I lived up there in the late 90s, and there was even black metal bands with the corpse paint and all that. There was a band called Thy Infernal. You guys have always had this sort of stoner sludge bands, and now I mean, there's great bands from up there, like Idle Hands, right? They're from Portland.
Yep.
Solicitor, or is Solicitor from Seattle? No, they're from Portland, right?
I'm not sure.
Silver Talon. They have like a Sanctuary, Nevermore kind of a vibe. There's so much talent coming out of the Pacific Northwest now. It's cool to be able to jump back into this and know that we're going to be it's more acceptable to sort of do the things that we do and sing about the things that we sing about. And I can do the high pitched screams, and we can do the fast guitar solos and all the double bass stuff, and nobody's going to be in the audience going, oh, that's some lame 80s stuff or whatever, because now it's like nostalgia, right? I mean, the 80s traditional heavy metal scene has come back, at least bubbling in the underground, to where it's almost like this Renaissance fair,
Yeah, no, it is not quite mainstream, but pretty close. I mean, the 80s rock has come back, and it's not just people our age. There's whole new generations. And part of it, you got to give credit to Motley Crue. They kept going. They kept building their brand. They got the Dirt autobiography book, and then they turned it into a movie and everything. And that exposed a whole new generation of kids to, heavy music. And then they started exploring and finding other bands and finding other albums. They go back and they listen to the old Crue records, but then it's like, well, who else was around? And, who were the Crue's influences? And then what did those influences beget? What other artists, So yeah, that's a lot of it. My show is mostly, the classic rock, the 25 to 54 demographic, but there's still a lot of the 20 somethings who are listening, and it's good. It's good. And a couple of other bands up here in Portland, Red Fang, Veo, Loyal Order, they're new, and they're doing pretty well. Dan Reed Network's still here, obviously not the same type of music, but they just put out a new album last week.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's craziness.
So yeah.
I knew Dan because Dan's girlfriend a long time ago. I don't even know if they'd still be together, and I doubt it, but was best friends with my girlfriend. So I had a lot of experiences with Dan. And it's just so weird to hear that name again. Crazy.
Yep, still active in the scene.
Yeah. And then I can't remember her real name at the moment, but there's a classical musician who just adopted the persona of White Crone and did a metal album.
That's Lisa Mann.
Yes, Lisa. Thank you.
Yes, she's awesome. She's a dear friend, and she also sings for Splintered Throne.
Oh yeah.
So she sings for Splintered Throne, who, I played a show with years ago when they had a different lineup, and she's really, bringing something to the table there on that. And that White Crone record, I love that White Crone record. I didn't love it at first. It was a little weird for me, because she kind of comes from that sort of blues jazz background. So, and her influences aren't straightforward. It was kind of billed as traditional metal. So I was expecting to hear some Rock You Like a Hurricane types, catchy choruses. And it's a little bit more, it's a little deeper than that, and proggy in places and doomy in places, and lots of storytelling. And man, once I finally got it was about 4 listens in, I was addicted. I didn't listen to anything else but that White Crone record for about 2 months. I've got like the whole record
wow.
completely memorized. I love it.
I'm sure she'll be glad to hear that. Little free
She
promotion
knows.
for Lisa.
She knows.
Yeah. So we got a pretty good scene, you know. Hopefully it'll get a little bit bigger, a little bit better next couple of years, COVID and, you know, things settle a bit downtown.
You know, I gotta say that I never paid attention to region when I was a kid. I moved around a lot, so I wasn't really from a place. You know, as a teenager, I was like, as far as I was concerned, I was from the world of heavy metal. Like heavy metal was a place to me, if that makes any sense. Like it was a place that lived in the import section of the record store, and you know, the local demo tapes and the pages of Hit Parader magazine, and et cetera, you know, tape trading with other kids. And so to me, like I would challenge people like today and say, and just walk up to somebody go to an Iron Maiden show and find some people in the you know, hanging out on their tailgate or whatever, drinking a beer, and go, here, we're going to do a quiz. It's a 5-second quiz and you can win $50. And I'll do this with you right now, Pariah, because I know you're a pretty knowledgeable dude. Okay. So
I'll
first
try.
question.
It's been a long day.
First question. Have you ever heard of the band Crocus?
Yeah.
Okay. Second question. You got 5 seconds. Where are they from?
I don't remember.
Take a guess.
It's not Germany, is it?
I thought
It's not.
Huh? Poland? No. That's weird. I thought
Okay,
it was
so
Germany.
5 seconds is up. They're from Switzerland.
Oh,
Did not know that. Crazy.
So they're a Swiss. But now my point, it's just to prove a point. Nobody knows where they're from, yet everybody knows who they are.
Yeah.
Therefore, they kind of exist in the world of heavy metal, if that makes any sense. They're almost like not even from a real place.
Yeah.
If I didn't even know, you know, to look at a photo of them in Hit Parader magazine would be the same as looking at a band from New Jersey or LA or, you know, I never thought about the Scorpions being German and AC/DC being Australian. Like it was all heavy metal to me, you know, or Van Halen being from Pasadena or Kiss being from New York. I mean, I knew those things, but it really occurred to me that it was like a worldwide thing or whatever. So when people talk about regions, it's like, I don't really connect that much with like this scene or that scene. Like to me, like, I think that's what's great about the new wave of traditional heavy metal is it's a worldwide community. There are bands from every corner of the globe kind of doing this throwback 80s thing and doing it, waving the flag and not doing it ironically. You know, they're not out there. There are a few hipsters that are kind of like, ha ha ha, swords and witches and dragons and stuff. That's silly. Ha ha. See, I have tight pants, but a lot of them, these kids are coming through and I'm booking bands like, this is just a few years ago, like Enforcer and Cauldron and like White Wizard had just come out, and booked Night Demon on their first tour and their second because they came through with Raven. We played both of those shows. All these bands are coming out and they're young guys. Here I am, you know, and I'll just say it. I'm in my 40s and I remember that time, and it's so refreshing to see a 20-something band roll in. They got their patch vests on, their skinny jeans and their white high tops, and they got bangs, the long hair and bangs, and they're playing Flying V's, you know, they're doing guitar solos and singing songs about witches and dragons and going, whoa, and they don't think it's stupid at all. They love all of that old Metal Church and Manowar and whatever, Merciful Fate and all of that's, it's just so cool to them. They're living it though through the pages of the magazines that I bought, that we all bought when they came out.
Yeah.
So when we come out as kind of OGs or whatever, like, hey, we're guys that were around then that are still young enough to kind of keep up with some of these kids. I think that we get the nod a lot of times. We got invited to do the autograph signing in Portland for the book, for the Rusted Metal book. Yeah. And the guys from the Q5 and, you know, I mean, Air Apparent's in that book. I mean, there was guys from the band Lipstick and, you know, all these old school metal dudes. Mike from Glacier was there. And it's like we got welcomed with open arms, like you're part of our community, you know, and we're signing their books and they're signing our books. And it's just so cool to have that sort of that family, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
I agree as well. It's I think the differentiation, the regionalization, like you were saying, I think that was more a construct of journalists and fans than bands. Maybe a little bit of the labels, trying to the new wave of British heavy metal and the Sunset Strip scene, and trying to
Bay Area thrash.
yeah, you know. But I mean, I remember in the 80s, it was the hot thing was the Sunset Strip. Everybody was coming out of there, and then you started getting thrash and power metal becoming mainstream, and that started opening up some other markets. But nobody cared where anybody was from.
Mhm.
It was
wouldn't
just
like
I only care when you're coming through my town so I can
Sure.
see you. You know,
Definitely.
I don't like a band more or less if they're from Pigs Knuckle, Arkansas. If they sound great, then they sound great. If they're the style that I like, it doesn't persuade me either way to go, oh, I don't like them because they're from the Chilean scene or something like that, or they're from the wrong part of Florida or something. Like that's just preposterous, I think. It's like good music is good music. It doesn't really, it doesn't matter, which side of the neighborhood somebody's from.
Yeah.
I agree. I do like it though when you get some regional influences, like you get Texas Hippie Coalition. They sound like Texas. You
Sure.
get you get a lot of Southern rock influenced. You get a lot of there's a different sound that comes from some of these South American thrash bands. But it's not othering. It's more here's something cool to bring, something new to bring into the scene. And it's not, oh well, they're from here. No, it's just, wow, okay, we haven't heard that from we haven't heard that style, that flavor before.
Sure.
I got to give
like
credit to Canada and say that Canada, back in the 80s, there weren't that many bands. You could probably name all the bands from Canada on one hand. I mean, as far as hard rock, heavy metals, like your Exciter and Anvil and, whatever. And of course, Rush was the big one. And
Helix.
Triumph is up there. Oh, Helix, right?
Yeah.
So there's only
Brian
a
Vollmer, if I can interrupt you for just a second. Speaking of Helix,
yeah.
I guess somebody wrote a book similar to the Rust book about Canadian bar band or bands that played through the Canadian hard rock scene, and they completely ignored Helix.
No.
And
wow.
and Brian Vollmer, leader of Helix, he was like, "This isn't right. We've been around and we got lots of record sales and everything." So they started up their own book. He got together. People started putting together a new book.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, the new wave of traditional heavy metal scene, there's a ton of bands from Canada that are definitely, making the old schoolers proud. There's your Cauldrons and Skullfist, and Unleash the Archers is doing really well. They do a kind of a mix of a power metal thing with like some death metal kind of growls and stuff, but they just won. You're gonna have to forgive me. I don't remember what it's called in Canada. They have
Juno.
Yes, they won the Juno Award this year for best hard rock album. And this is a band that when they come through town, they sleep at my house.
That's freaking cool.
So it's cool to see that our scene is getting some recognition.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that that's the next thing to swing around. There are all these bands. I don't know if I'm gonna name the right ones. Struts and Rival Sons, and I don't even know enough about them to be pigeonholing them. But this new wave of we wear bell bottoms now. They're tight bell bottoms. So that's a new interesting thing. But the classic rock look and bands like, and I'm not gonna put Greta Van Fleet in there because that's not where I want to go. But Joyous Wolf is a band that I saw live, and they look like a 70s classic rock band. And there are a lot of the bands that are coming out with that sound too. And I think I think maybe the next thing to come around is, some of the more melodic thrash stuff. Maybe the next resurgence, maybe a bunch of bands are going to come back. And I know there are a lot of bands that are doing more of the Exodus thing but they're staying into that and they're just staying there. But I think we painted ourselves into a little bit of a corner, because if we play with bands that are too heavy, if we were literally to go play with Exodus, we would not be feeding the fans' addiction with what they want to hear enough of. And then if we play with any of the newer really heavy bands, they're just going to look at us like, why are they singing? You know, what is that they're doing? And then if we play with a band that maybe not as heavy as us, you know, it's
a band on frontiers like Eclipse or
yeah,
Thrash
yeah.
or something. Yeah,
we fit there better. I'd rather play with a band like Loudness we had talked about, and bands like that have some really heavy guitar. I think we fit better there, but we did notice that we may fall into an interesting area, because if we say we're thrash, some people in places don't necessarily want to deal with us, but we really only have some of the smaller thrash elements. I would say when I started writing the guitars for Emissary, I was a kid. I was learning how to play guitar. I was reading books. Like when I met Jim, was just learning like what the pentatonic scale was. I was like, okay, how do they go? How do they do that part of guitar? Do they just write little wee, 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 and do they write that and then learn what it was? Or do they know a scale, which I learned later, they know a scale and they mess around with it until something sounds good. So I moved to Oregon to go to college. And then I started taking guitar lessons, and I was like, okay, I want to be in a band. So this is what I'm going to do. I came up from the Bay Area in my, early 20s. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So I just started playing my guitar and learning, and I went and got some lessons, and then everything else I did by myself. But as we were writing the stuff, we were both learning how to do this. We may have been in other projects and stuff, but we were like, how do you really do that? And and I remember I had a friend that Jim doesn't like too much, and that's fine because he's hard to get along with, but I remember him coming in and saying, you guys should try some harmony stuff. And we really hadn't done that yet. So we kind of started to, or at least this is my recollection of it. He kind of showed me because he knew more about it. He was like, yeah, do this, not just an octave, but do this. So we were learning. And then as we're writing, I was definitely influenced, I would say, by the band Death Angel. And they had an album called Act 3, which wasn't as thrashy. It was all the bands after the Black Album. And actually I think that might have come out before the Black Album, but there was that period where everybody did a little more mellow album. Now,
right, the thrash bands that were doing their one melodic record.
Yeah. And I think
did it, Whiplash, Annihilator. Yeah.
Megadeth, I think, waited until Countdown, right? They were like, because he'll admit, oh yeah, that's our Enter Sandman is simply Symphony of Destruction. We wanted an Enter Sandman, and bands were doing that. But Act 3, for some reason, and Anthrax, Persistence of Time, I always loved the albums that the true fans of these bands don't like as much. And the bands themselves will say, yeah, we're not playing much of that, if any. But I'm the guy that's like, oh my God, that album, Act 3 and Persistence of Time, that made the song Keep It in the Family was a song that was like, okay, that's how the way that makes me feel is what I want to make everyone feel when I'm writing riffs and stuff. And then, yes, we had to put in with some stuff to please those people. But when we started Emissary, we had some Cinderella sounding songs and some, I don't even know what the one song that was all bluesy sounded like.
Faster Pussycat almost or something.
Yeah, we didn't know. Yeah, we were a little glammy kind of sleaze rock at first.
Well, and even Pantera started out that way.
Yeah,
definitely. We have the early Pantera stuff, and we remember the pictures of Phil with his long pink hair and things that he doesn't want people to remember. And there are guys, and Jim knows that those guys, some of those guys don't even want to talk about that. Like I know that I'm ADD, but Rex would never ever sit down and have a conversation with you about that era of Pantera. And a lot of people don't, there are those people. And then, I'm a guy that gets really mad at bands that don't embrace, don't dance with the girl that brought you to the dance. Go see Radiohead. There's no way they're playing Creep live. I almost can guarantee without even knowing. Go look up their most recent set list. I guarantee you the big famous song's not on there. And go see Tool. I guarantee you Sober's not on there. And because these bands like to forget those commercial hits, that I'm like, but Rush still plays Tom Sawyer every single night, and they're sick of it, but they know that people want to hear it. And I just, I saw Robert Plant at one point a few years, 10 years ago, and I went to hear Robert Plant's solo stuff, not Zeppelin. And he didn't play one song from his solo hits, Big Log, In the Mood, Ship of Fools, Little by Little, none of that. He wouldn't touch it. He played a bunch of weird Zeppelin versions of like reggae Zeppelin songs. And I was so upset that I can't just get the thing that I fed on back then. If you're going to give me a little rock of crack, keep giving me that same rock of crack later, or else I'm not going to buy it from you anymore. I don't need fentanyl. I just need crack. Excuse me. If you understand where I'm going. But I guess my point was the bands that wouldn't embrace the stuff that I fell in love with was upsetting. And I understand some of the bands needed to stay aggressive and, but it was a bummer. But that's definitely our influence ended up falling on that Bay Area, more of the mid-tempo thrash. And then Jim came with more of a melodic vocal style. And that's where the two puzzle pieces that weren't from the same puzzle actually fit together.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
That absolutely. There was definitely I'll say there's a quirkiness to the way that Tim comes up with riffs, and there's a quirkiness to the way that I come up with vocal melodies. And when we're putting music together, either if I come up with a riff and I hand it to him, he'll play it differently and phrase it differently and kind of add his own Timism into the guitar riff, and therefore it becomes ours. Or he writes the riffs and I put them in order and say, let this one ring out and play that thing twice, and that sounds like a verse, that sounds like a chorus, to where we're both responsible for the music. It doesn't matter if it started with me or started with him, and that's, I think, the Emissary sound. If we have a signature sound, the way I think that AC/DC has the signature sound and Iron Maiden has a signature sound, there's certain things that songwriters do that they kind of always go back to these certain little motifs or whatever. And there are certain things in my vocal melodies that I do frequently. And you put his quirkiness and my quirkiness together, and it's this weird, peanut butter and jelly thing. And we may get pissed off at each other or not get along over the years. Back when we were kids and we went from not knowing what we were doing to being instantly the biggest band in the area. There were egos and, and we were, I said in one interview that I had my head so far up my ass I could see out of my mouth. Yeah. And, and it's kind of a funny thing that all these years later, we were able to, we're grown-ups now. So we were able to talk it out and say, hey, I did some things back then. Maybe I said some stuff that I shouldn't have, maybe we should have approached that differently or whatever, and it was kind of little therapy sessions between band members, and got Pete and Eric back involved with it. And now we're finally giving the world the songs, the way that they probably should have sounded to begin with. And I can't give Doug Hill enough props for really coming in as a producer and coming in with ideas and saying, wanting certain things to do, wanting the sounds to do certain things and delays and panning certain things, giving us ideas and making things better. The way this record is going to turn out, with the artwork and everything, is like, it's a dream come true that we finally get to give the world this thing that we started 25, over 25 years ago.
Definitely most proud of it. I'm definitely, and you never want to say too many nice things about somebody, but after all the years, Jim definitely is the guy that I write with the best and get along with the best in the music world. We can finish each other's sentences usually. I may have a little poorer grammar while doing that, but he'll point that out, which is wonderful. But no, there's something there, and it's rare for me. It's funny, just real quick. I was in, I'm in another band, but we've been dormant for a while. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but we got a deal and did some neat things, got, one of our songs as part of a TV series on Amazon Prime, and we did some neat things, and I was proud of a lot of that. But it came time, the label was talking to me about, you guys should all get into a room and write together. And I was like, I'm sorry, dude, but he's like, the best stuff comes from that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry to do this, but no, that there's Dave Grohl. Go talk to Dave Grohl about that. Go talk about the Foo Fighters. Go talk however you want to talk about that, you can. But right now, it came down to, I ended up, I wrote and recorded everything. Vocals, drums, guitar, bass, every part of it I did myself. And we were presenting it to the label and stuff. And I was proud of it, I guess. But I didn't want to get in a room with these guys, especially the main guy that started the band, because it just, I just knew that I just know him and I know it won't work. And then I lost that passion of riffing with somebody. What if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? And then it finally, that came back with Jimbo. Finally, we got that back, and we're like, oh my God, I forgot how this used to go. Like literally goosebumps as I'm writing something and he throws out a vocal line or shows me his lyrics, which I've always put his lyrics up there in the top 5 of my favorite. Neil Peart, James Hetfield. And there are some guys, and I love Jim's lyrics. I love the way he writes. And so I get excited. I'm excited again. This is definitely the greatest, my favorite thing I've ever done in music. And it's so, people ask about it. Oh, is it fun to get that back together and just finally get that out there and get that? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm back in Emissary and we're going to go until I die. So we are back. We will keep going. However it is, if it ends up, me sitting here and everybody else tells me to take a hike, then I guess I'll just keep doing it. But it's the passion I have for this. And I know my place. We know our spot. We're not expecting a lot of FM radio play, and we're not expecting Foundations Forum or the Billboard charts to be fighting over any Emissary songs. We understand that. We know our place. We're for a select group. We're not
headlining Vakken anytime soon.
We're not going to headline it. No, we will open up on a Monday at noon. But there is a chemistry for sure. And when we started working together, we've already got a few newer songs in the can that we've worked on together, where we were just batting ideas back and forth, just like this, over a video call. And there was that one moment where I sang a lyric, whatever, I sang a little melody thing that probably sounded like me to Tim over a riff that sounded like Tim to me. And we both got that weird thing. His face got all red and he goes, I'm getting that thing. I'm getting that feeling again. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And the other guys in the band, definitely, I say they rub their own stink on it. The way that Eric Hoover plays drums, he has a quirky way of playing drums, and he has certain drum fills that he chooses that aren't standard heavy metal drum fills. And the way our bass player plays isn't necessarily the exact way that most bassists would play things, and the way our voices sound together. And like I was saying, Tim doing vocals as well, it all kind of comes together and makes the sound that sounds like Emissary. And I'm excited after this record comes out to see how it does and see what we can do further with another record.
And we're only hearing good things, just to be just really quick. It's been so nice. And of course, not many people are going to be like, hey, you guys, I wanted to tell you how much I disliked your album. I know that's not going to happen, but and this has nothing to do with anything, and I'm only saying it because of the way it made me feel and gave me value. But the people that had talked to Jim and said, hey, we love Silent Storm, but this Emissary thing it has something special to it. And it could be how jazzed I am in writing and recording, and maybe the guys in Silent Storm were more session-y, or at least maybe just didn't fully have their heart in that style of music. Maybe that is noticeable. I struggle figuring that part out, but people have said that there's an energy to it more than just one person. Right. Plenty of people have said it. And the amount of people that have said to Jim that, or at least Jim relayed it that way, that, hey, nothing against Silent Storm. We love it. but this stuff seems there's something special to it. There's a sparkle or a sheen to it that people are being, getting excited about. And again, the likes to dislike, ratio on that new wave traditional heavy metal channel, that just makes me so proud to say people were more inspired to hit like that. And some people didn't hit anything, obviously.
We got our first review. We got our first record review back yesterday, and we got a 9.2 out of 10.
Yeah, which is
EP.
Yeah.
And wow.
I'm just
what media was that?
So huge shout out to Ben over at Nasty Metal Productions on
Nasty Metal
on
Productions.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like, and I think that one of the things about the excitement is that this band shows its teeth a little bit more than Silent Storm. Silent Storm kind of leaned a little bit on semi-progressive kind of a vibe, like virtuosity in its playing, but maybe felt a little more relaxed in places than this band does. I think this band feels like its blood is pumping a little bit more, and maybe there's not so much virtuosity involved, sure, but it seems like there's a passion about it or whatever, and you can hear that. You can hear the excitement of the players in the record.
Yeah, and definitely the you can't go home again thing right now with this situation. I think you can. We're doing it again. I've always thought throughout the 25 years or whatever in between, I always still I had the CD in my disc changer, and I would listen to the three songs, not these three that are on the EP, but two of them, Crash and Burn and Silent Treatment, and then another one in Solitude. I would always listen to it and be so proud because that was the first real thing I ever did. And I grew up getting a lot of opportunities because of my dad. My dad was an NFL coach, and so I would get jobs and things because of that. The Emissary stuff was something I got to do by myself for the first time and actually kind of blossom. And it was because of me that the guitars sounded the way they did and stuff. And so I always knew someday, even though Jim and I weren't talking for a long time, I just knew someday something was going to happen with Emissary because I thought the songs were just all too good for a bunch of young guys that wrote these songs. I think we did an exceptional job of writing songs that weren't throwaway and weren't, I think every song, of course, I'm going to say it, but every song on the album has something that I think people are going to be like, whoa. And
any song could be somebody's favorite.
Definitely.
So speaking of that, you're letting, you've asked me to exclusively premiere on the Hard, Heavy and Hair show, one of the new songs off the upcoming album. Yeah. What's the name of the album again?
The Wretched Masquerade.
Wretched Masquerade. And when are we going to see that?
Before the end of the year. Okay. We don't have an exact release date yet, but that's the plan is before the end of the year. We're doing the mix down on the last couple of songs now, working on the layout for both versions of the CD and the vinyl. It's kind of crunch time. We want to get it out before the end of the year so we can get on maybe somebody's best of the year lists, for albums, my favorite albums of the year. So Hypochondriac was something we started a long time ago. It was a song that was one of the last things we started to put together. It never really got completely finished. And it was the first thing when we decided to redo this. I was like, we need to pick that up and finish that song and really make it what it should have been back then. And I came up with a lot of the riffs myself and then handed them over to Tim, and he added things to the music that I wouldn't have thought of, that none of this music would be the same without the two of us putting our heads together, and then again, the other guys throwing their spice on it too. So very, very proud of this one.
Right on. So let's go ahead and give it a spin. Let's listen to Hypochondriac right now.
Just that we're definitely a band that is excited to get on the road again, and we're probably at the point where we'll get together and do a week at a time, maybe if we can, and we're really looking for, who wouldn't be, those shows and opportunities of us getting to play with some of our bands that we used to love, as kind of a payoff of all the hard work. And we are heading to Chicago in May for Legions of Metal, will be,
Yeah.
Greyhawk and the Rods and Vane and
With Angel and Slough-Fag and
great
it's
bands out there. So
And-
we're
and
excited
you-
for that.
festival.
And you'll
Definitely
have the
play some
Wretched Masquerade out at that
Yeah.
point.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
great.
That'll be out, and we'll hopefully be doing some shows we'll be in Denver, and we'll tour from Denver on out to Chicago in and around May, and we'll keep people updated on that. And hopefully we have, at the very least, we should have some CDs available by the end of the year, depending on the vinyl factories and how backed up they are. But we're
The
super
pressing
excited
plant
for it.
probably won't get to the vinyl until next
Yeah.
year. So we can just say that now that the CD and digital version will be out by the end of the year, and then it's coming out on vinyl next year.
Yeah.
Will
and-
you still have that bonus edition out by the end of the year? 'Cause
Yes.
I think a lot of the fans are really going to like the idea of the
Yeah.
bonus edition with your early demos, as well as
Yeah.
the new, the modern mix and finished songs.
Yeah, the
definitely.
plan for the vinyl is to have the bonus edition as well, but not the bonus. The bonus material won't be on vinyl. It'll be
Yeah.
so you'll get a
Okay.
vinyl record of the album, and then there'll be a CD in the cover that will
Cover,
be
yeah.
the same bonus disc that you got if you get the deluxe version of the CD.
Okay.
Definitely.
Cool.
It'd be great.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both very much for coming on the show. Jim Harris, Tim Dahlen, thank you so much for coming on, talking to us about Emissary. Really looking
Pariah,
forward to the
you
new
are
record.
awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, total pleasure. And if people would just head to the original Emissary on Facebook, that would be great. If you like us and kind of follow us, and we like to engage with people. So I struggle calling people fans because everybody's just a friend if they're gonna give us any of their time. So we appreciate that, and head on to the maybe there'll be links, but the NW. You say it, Jim. Go.
NWOTHM full albums on YouTube. We're also on Bandcamp, and occasionally we post on Instagram. Who knows? What more things will open up shortly for us.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks very much, guys. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Remember, to hear the music discussed in this interview, stream the on-demand Hard, Heavy, and Hair show at pariahrocks.com.
That's PARIAHROCKS.com.
Also hit pariahrocks.com to stream or listen on a radio station near you. The regular 2-hour Hard, Heavy, and Hair show with me, Pariah Burke. Hard, Heavy, and Hair is your weekly dose of hard rock, heavy metal, and hair bands from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 20-teens, and today, including the latest new releases, your old favorites, and deep cuts and rare hair, along with rock news and trivia.